So what I feel like is that in a lot of society, we have like this subconscious belief that in date, like good love or like sustainable love means self-abandonment. Like, and I don't think it's like an intentional thing, but like when you think about like dating, for example, I don't know if you're this type of person, or like think about, potentially yourself, but also like other people as an example. Like so often we see people get into a relationship and like it starts off all even and good and fair, and then what happens is like one person or the other person will start sort of self-abandoning, and then what happens is the other person isn't as attracted anymore because it's like that self that the other person was initially attracted to has been abandoned, and now they're just a mirror of the other person, and so that attraction goes down because there's nothing to draw in, you know what I mean? Because they've just become the self-abandoning shell of a person. And it's really sad to see because a lot of times like these start off as good dynamics, you know what I mean? And so I think like you hear always that rhetoric like, oh, like, everyone always leaves me, or like all guys are the same, or like, they're interested and then they're not. Like, I think most of it comes down to those energetic dynamics. I think that's what happens is like we think that loving a person means to abandon ourselves. And so like a lot of times like we will get stuck in those cycles, but then the same dynamic can't be maintained. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so I'm just really passionate about trying to shift that because I think that's something a lot of people kind of fall into, you know what I'm saying? And I think there's just such a difference, and it's kind of a rare thing to see two people come together in union in wholeness. Like, I can't think of many examples where I've seen that and like it's been genuine and like sustainable. I think a lot of times like the relationships I've seen and like my friends, like people I know, family, just like out in the world, like it's usually that sort of flip-flop dynamic. Like it's the like the avoidant anxious, you know what I mean? Like I feel like in a lot of relationship dynamics out in the world that I've seen, it's like either one person is consistently chasing the other person, and a lot of times those are the most sustainable dynamics because then it's like it's always going to be like that, you know what I mean? My parents are a good example of that. And then I would say like there's sort of the other dynamic where it's like it flip-flops all the time, you know what I'm saying, where it's like, oh, like attraction this way, and then that person's chasing this person, you know what I mean? It's very like cat and mousey, like back and forth, and a lot of times those are very fleeting and unstable. But I think it's rare to see like a secure, stable, healthy relationship. And maybe it's not, maybe I've just had bad examples, but I think a lot of times like even when we look at like culture and like romance and just a lot of like the media, I think they sort of play into like more of the extreme, back and forth energetic dynamics. But I think like when we talk about like true union, which is kind of a rare thing, like there has to be that process of maintaining sovereignty. And that's challenging to do for most people in dating because like I said, like when you get into a relationship and start falling in love with a person, what happens is you fall in love. And so you kind of place them on this pedestal, and then you sort of make them your source of like happiness, fulfillment, whatever it is, instead of you being that for yourself, which is what you were doing previously when you were single. And that's what drew this person in. That's what made this connection so beautiful. But if that starts changing over time, the dynamic's going to change as well. So when you start dating, it's actually really, really important to keep dating yourself, in my opinion, because that's where things will start to falter, I think. Because and I think it's like so subtle that it's not even noticeable, right? Because like part of love is sort of that falling process of like almost surrendering into a person. And that's really beautiful, but to an extreme, it's not going to be supported. It's not going to be sustainable, and it's not what the other person fell in love. You know what I'm saying? So it's interesting, and I think we like it just comes down to mindfulness and like remembering that when you do get into an engagement with this person, as beautiful as it is that like, oh, this person's your everything and like they're your whole world, they also kind of can't be. And I know that's like kind of sucky to say, but that's the truth. Because if you want a divine union, like a relationship with true wholeness that isn't like two people or one person, that isn't like, because a lot of times what happens is relationships, instead of being relationships, and like enjoying the process of connection, they become sort of tools to get our needs met, when it was like we could have given that to ourselves, external, independent of that person, right? And a lot of times we are, and then we go into a relationship and then that sort of shifts. We almost forget that we're able to give ourselves those things, because I feel it's almost like, this is what I feel, this is how I sort of equate it. Like, when you think about, I guess maybe like an addict, for example, like say you're addicted to vapes, right? And you feel like you've been taking care of yourself, you've been feeling whole, you've been feeling good, like you have that, like the natural dopamine, like the natural serotonin hits, right? You've got that wholeness, that stability, right? You don't want the vape, you're good. You've been working on yourself, you have these natural sources of fulfillment, right? So you don't need those quick hits. But then what happens is, once you get a hit, all of a sudden, all of that wholeness and everything you were doing starts to become a little bit obsolete. You know what I mean? Because it's like a quicker hit and it's like a little bit more exciting. And then you fall into that cycle. Now, you don't need it, because you can still get, to some extent, like the same satisfaction over here. I mean, they're slightly different, but I think that's kind of what happens in relationships, is like, it's a different type of, like this, like the self-love type of love is a different sort of feeling than like love with a person. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think because there's physicality involved now too, and there's like ego involved in a sense, like even like when you're physically connecting with a person, like there's different hits of like dopamine or serotonin, whatever, versus you just being whole within yourself. It's like, it's almost it's a more intense high. And so I think it becomes easy to sort of start depending on this person for these feelings, when in reality, you had most of these feelings before. You had the feeling of love. You have the feeling of security, of groundedness, of purpose, whatever it is. And then you start using this person as your source. And that's where things get wonky, because no person is supposed to be our source of that. And I think it's easy to forget that in dating. And so then we put all of these ridiculous demands onto other people, when in reality, like, they're just their own sovereign being, right? And so are you. And you guys should be meeting your own needs and then coming together in connection and wholeness, not trying to, get their needs met out of the other person. And I don't think that it's unhealthy to like have, boundaries and expectations of like how you like reassurance and like, words of affirmation, whatever it is for you, like whatever your expectations are in a relationship. But if you don't give those things to yourself and then you demand it from another person, they will never give it to you. Like, have you noticed that? Until you give something to yourself, until you treat yourself a specific way, no one else is, like, people mirror how you perceive yourself, how you treat yourself. So it doesn't really, it also, like, I think we also see people who get into relationships and it's like, you never do this and you need to make me feel loved and reassured. And I'm sorry, I'm not making fun of those people, but I also kind of am, because we've all been in that position where it's like, oh, like this person needs to do this so I can feel this. When in reality, the truth is that we need to feel this, and then this person naturally does that. That's the way it works. It's the way of the universe. It's the way of human psychology, of energetic dynamics. So point being that relationships, love does not equal self-abandonment, and you're probably gonna feel inclined to do it. I'm looking at you. You're gonna feel inclined to do it, I'm telling you, because that's part of the process, right? Like, part of the process is to, again, like, sort of lose yourself in another person. That's what love is. It is to some extent self-abandonment, you know what I mean, the process of it. But when we're talking about true functionality of a healthy relationship, you kind of got to watch that, which is weird. So I don't know what that means in terms of putting it in practice, but try to focus on the things that you did before. Make sure that you're creating that separation. Okay? Because like in love and relationships, like obviously so much of it is merging with the other individual, but you need to also have habits to unmerge and to separate energy and to take space and create separation. You know what I mean? And remember that you guys are both your own entities. You're both your own whole beings, and you get to enjoy this connection together. Like, it shouldn't be a tool for getting your needs met. I hope this was helpful. I will see you guys next time. Love you. Bye.